you, Acting President. I rise to speak in support of Mr Barton's motion today, for the second time this week actually. I do have concerns about the mounting number of issues that are already being referred to the Legal and Social Issues Committee, and I suspect that at this point we may need to discuss more in detail in this place in regards to how we are going to cope with all of those referrals. However, I do agree that this motion is extremely important. We should, in fact, indeed we must, do more to address the cause of homelessness. That should be a basic obligation of all us politicians, and it should be a bipartisan approach. To put it simply, there are very few issues that exemplify inequality in society more than homelessness. We live in a modern, advanced, highly technological society, and yet at the same time we have many thousands of Victorians who don't even have a safe home or place in which to sleep, wash, eat, or perform many of their basic daily duties and functions, many of which we take for granted. It's deeply, deeply concerning to me that according to the most recent census and studies from the Council of Homelessness Persons, that 20% of Australians' entire homeless population is in Victoria. That says a lot about us as Victorians and as a government of the need for much further support in this area. Victoria has increased its homelessness by 8.3% over the preceding 5 years. And there's also been a 23% rise over the same period in the number of Victorians aged 55 or older who have become homeless. I was going to speak more on those numbers, but I won't. I think most people in the chamber have already conversed and discussed those figures. But these numbers, however, are a very sad reflection of the broader changes that are happening within our society. I agree with Mr Barton that from a personal perspective, it is almost impossible to imagine sleeping outdoors, especially in the cold of winter, every night. I have done it once with a previous homelessness organisation that I worked for, and it was extremely unpleasant. What got us all through that night is that we actually knew the next night we would be back in the comfort and safety of our homes and warm beds. It's also very challenging to extend that a step further and to begin conceptualising the threat of assault and abuse to which these homeless people are often subjected to in the process of sleeping rough. So not only are they cold, are they often dirty, they don't have access to the supports that you and I and many other people generally do, but they also must at times live in fear of that general threat of being assaulted. I would like to extend my congratulations to the many organisations in Victoria who do a fantastic job in supporting people at risk of homelessness, particularly our young youth. This is no easy feat, and we often see, as I well knew working with the homelessness sector, that the resources available to those organisations often inhibit the work that they are able to do. And one of those examples is that often organisations are only funded to support a young person at risk of homelessness for 13 weeks. So within those 13 weeks, you often have to address mental health, drug and alcohol, often trying to reconnect them with their families, and a plethora of other barriers that these young people face. Now, if those things haven't been established and supported in those 13 weeks, then that young person has to leave that organisation. And what we continue to see is that cycle of homelessness. We often refer to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and having shelter and a roof over your head is the first and foremost important part of supporting a young person to achieve many other things. If they have that roof over their head and they can be linked in with the proper support, they can receive the mental health, the rehabilitation and many other things that they may need to help them rise above their homelessness and be reconnected with their community and society. And that is imperative. When we look at homelessness, we must also always take a collective impact approach on looking at every other issue that continues to create the homelessness. So it is not just looking at why are people sleeping rough. There's many others who have already attributed to these factors, but having worked in that field, it is so extremely important. So there is while it's wonderful to build these houses, we also need to have services that will often go to those people. We need outreaches to go to these people. If they don't have access to transportation, we need these services to go in and support them. We need that intensive case management, and that is what our organisations need to be further funded on. Long-term housing options, which is something that I know organisations are looking at, putting people into private rentals and supporting that to sustain that is just so important. I'd like to acknowledge two rural organisations, NISE, Junction Support Services, actually three, and Beyond Housing, who do an amazing job in rural Victoria. I'd also like to say, I'm going to wind up. I had a lot more to speak on, but I know that there are other speakers, so I certainly do not want to impede on their speaking time. So in short, I strongly support the prospect of the Council, through the Legal and Social Issues Committee, investigating the issues specified in Mr Barton's motion in greater depth, and I genuinely hope that will do something and go some way, even if it is a small way, toward improving and understanding in this place of the issues and what is most needed to redress them. And more to the point, starting to correct the dreadful facts and figures on homelessness to which I referred earlier. I support this and I commend this to the House, and I fully support any work that is done in regards to all matters relevant to homelessness. Thank you.